you would be here tonight. I'm honored that you would join me and my lovely wife Elizabeth and my family on the night before an historic election. And people are saying to me, Jack, you seem like you're feisty. You seem like you're fighting. The answer is heck yes. I'm fighting for students. I'm fighting for seniors. I'm fighting for veterans. I'm fighting for women. And I have one question for you. Will you fight with me these next 2 years? Folks, there's a clear choice in this election. As clear as there's ever been in a Senate contest.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a working family in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, you have a choice between me. I've stood up for working families. I've stood up for workplace safety standards. I've stood up for people who can't stand up for themselves. And then you have my opponent, who's come out for a 23% national sales tax, who says we need no workplace safety standards, and has even said we ought to take coal mine safety standards back to where they are in the 1930s. That's a clear choice. If you're a senior citizen in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, you have a clear choice. Between me, I've stood up for seniors when they were scammed. We have abuse and neglect prosecutions up over 300% in the Office of Attorney General. I know that we can save $300 billion and shore up Medicare into the future. That's one choice. On the other hand, you have my opponent, who's called Social Security a Ponzi scheme that ought to be privatized, says we need a 23% national sales tax, and has said we need a $2,000 deductible on Medicare. Folks, in the real world in which I live, the seniors with whom I talk in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, they get about $1,100 a month in a Social Security check. Maybe they get a pension. They can't afford a $2,000 deductible. They can't afford a 23% national sales tax on their food, on clothing, groceries and medicine. They can't afford it. That's a clear choice. That's right, man, we can't afford it. If you're a student in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, you have a clear choice. I foresee a future where no young student ever drops out of college or community college because he or she cannot afford their student loan. And my opponent has called for eliminating the Federal Department of Education and Pell Grants. That's a clear choice. If you're a veteran in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, boy, do you have a clear choice. Between someone like me, who understands we have 300,000 veterans in this state, who understands we have 50,000 disabled veterans in this state, who understands we have 12,000 newly disabled veterans since 9/11 in this state. We have Fort Campbell, we have Fort Knox, and they need to be stood up for.
Yeah!
On the other hand, you have my opponent, who says we need to look at cutting back on veterans' benefits, and has come out and questioned the Americans with Disabilities Act. I had the great honor a couple weeks ago of campaigning with Senator Max Cleland. You know who Max Cleland is? You talk about the guy who gave it the office. He left 3 limbs on the battlefield in the Vietnam War, and he came here to tell the people of Kentucky, don't you let Rand Paul say to him that he should just take his office on the first floor. Stand up for the veterans and the disabled veterans in our Commonwealth. If you care about public safety in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, you have a clear choice. Between me, we've taken 86,000 child porn images off of the internet as your Attorney General.
Whoa!
We've created a prescription pill task force to try to put a dent in these illegal pills coming in from places like Florida. That's a clear choice between me and someone like my opponent, who said that drugs aren't a pressing issue in Kentucky and that he would work against federal assistance both for drug interdiction and treatment. Folks, that's a clear choice. And to the women of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, you have a clear choice. Between me, I've hired more professional women in the Office of the Attorney General. I believe in equal pay for equal work. I believe that every woman in America over the age of 40 ought to get a mammogram without a copay. And then you have my opponent, who has written who has written that we don't need equal pay for equal work protections, and he's even said that we need to eliminate federal funding for breast cancer research. University of Louisville gets millions of dollars for breast cancer research. Last month was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This is an issue that got Jane Beshear, our First Lady, so hopping mad she did a statewide conference call about it. And ask Governor Beshear, you don't want to get Jane hopping mad. But he did. Folks, this is a clear choice. So I ask you once again tonight, will you fight with me these next 24 hours? And when we get elected, we have a lot of work to do. You know, people in places like Kentucky, they see the government growing and they don't see enough jobs being created. And when my opponent was asked about his jobs plan, he said, well, Mr. President, you're not going to believe this. He said, people are just going to have to take lesser wages and take some tough love. That's not a jobs plan. That's being callous. We have a jobs plan. What we say to small and medium-sized businesses are that we say, you want to create a new job? Take 20% of it as a tax credit. We capped the program at $30 billion. Estimates are it would create 750,000 jobs all across the country. That's a jobs plan, ladies and gentlemen. We need to get our small and community banks lending once again to the small and medium-sized businesses, because the government bailed out a bunch of big banks up on Wall Street. Now hear me and hear me well. George W. Bush and Mitch McConnell bailed them out. That's who bailed them out, all right? But the regulators have come down really hard on our small and our community banks, and oftentimes it's that $200,000 or $300,000 loan that can be the lifeline to a small business. We need a top-to-bottom review of our trade deals, because we've lost 100,000 manufacturing jobs in this state in the last decade. And you know what? Kentucky's an energy-producing state. We can stand up for Kentucky coal, but you know what we can also do? We can stand up for those who mine it, and that's what I'll do as the next folks, I need you. We need you. I need you.
We need you.
You know, Elizabeth and I have been at this since April of 2009. And this is the part of the campaign, and I'm certain the president knows this better than I, but I have to give it up. I've got to put it in your hands. This is your election. I'm just the name on the sign. I'm just the name on the ballot. And folks, there are a lot of groups that have come in here that has raised a lot of special interest out-of-state money that have come in here and tried to distort who I am. And they're proud of what they were saying. They would have told you who they were in the first place. But they're trying to distort this election. But a funny thing happened on the way to the election. The people of Kentucky woke up. And will you help me wake them up tomorrow as well?